Hello everybody, Gray Seeker here, and for this video I'm gonna do something crazy, right? So crazy is installing Ubuntu on Btrfs. Now before you give me a laugh like this for my definition of crazy, let me tell you what we're gonna do. So we have two disks, two exactly identical disks for this setup, and we are gonna partition them with the exact same layout, and then we're gonna put the boot partitions in a RAID array as well as the swap partitions, and then encrypt the RAID array for swap and put swap on top of that, and then we're gonna encrypt the root partitions one by one and then make a RAID 1 with Btrfs on top of those, right? So it will be a very, sort of challenging and fun thing to do with your Ubuntu installation, especially if you are on a NAS or server or whatever installation that you feel the need to encrypt and then make use of the software RAID. So it's very good, and I don't know how much you agree with using encryption under a RAID array. Maybe that's not something good to do because the risk of corruption, the data recovery will be much harder. However, it is achievable, it is doable, so let's do that. So the first thing is of course getting the Ubuntu image, and I am using Ubuntu 16.04 for this. And what you need to do is to burn the image to a USB using the methods we have discussed earlier, either using Rufus on Windows or DD in Linux, and plug it into your computer and launch. Now I'm going to press enter here, and English and other options, just because this is a VirtualBox, you don't need to do any of that. And I am going to remove this stuff and add VGA 773 and press enter to boot the system, just to make the screen a little bit bigger. On a real system, real hardware, you don't need to do that. Alright, so it is now booting up, and yeah, as you can see here, but it doesn't give me any graphical environment right now because I have applied that VGA code. So it is better if you avoid the X as much as possible, because some commands may cause Unity desktop to crash, So we just switch to a terminal, a TTY, and log in as the Ubuntu user without any password. No password is needed, and then type sudo-i to go root and disable the LightDM display manager and kill the X server. So systemctl stop LightDM, and it should take care of X, but just for the sake of caution we type pkill X to kill the X server, and it is now done and we are ready to begin. So clear the screen and then zap any partition table that is on your two identical disks. Note that it will completely erase everything, so make sure to back them up. sgdisk -Z for zapping, dev SDA, do the same for SDB. Okay, and now we need to partition one and apply that layout to the other. So gdisk dev SDA, and yeah, we're gonna use GPT. And N for a new partition, first sector is the default, last is plus 32 megabytes for BIOS boot, which is EF02. Next one is 512 megabytes, and code is the default. Third is for the swap partition, first sector is the default, and I'm going to give it 2 Gs. 8200 is the swap code, and the last one is going to have everything as default and is going to be assigned to our root. So as you can see here, the layout is fairly simple, just 4 partitions. So save it and exit, yes, and then back up the layout and apply it to the other disk you have. So sgdisk --backup, and give it a name for the backup, like gpt.a, backup from dev SDA, and type sgdisk --load backup gpt.a on dev sdb, so that the same layout is applied. And I have typed something on here. Is gdisk, right? Now it's time to create our RAID arrays for boot and swap. So now it's time to install the RAID software RAID manager in Linux, and you can do that by typing apt update to first update the application catalog on Ubuntu, and then apt install mdadm. Let's get a cursor for our console too, so that we can do some easy copy and pasting. So GPM, and it should now get all of them. Or maybe GPM isn't available in these repositories. I need to add maybe another repo like universe. Well, we can simply ignore that for now. Just MDM. Okay. Now create the array. For boot, you can do it two ways. Either you rely on Btrfs for creating the array for you, or you can do it using Linux software RAID manager. But it is safer to do that using Btrfs because Btrfs has a much better error handling. So, and grub2 and xlinux and most of other bootloaders are able to boot from that directly. So you won't be facing any problems as far as booting is concerned. But just to show you how it is done using the mdraid stuff, I'm gonna do that using mdraid, but I'm gonna also show you how to do that using Btrfs. mdadm -c, I'm gonna name it something, so dev mdboot is the name I'm gonna go with. Number of devices is 2, the level RAID is 1, we're gonna put it on RAID 1, and the metadata for the RAID, put it on 1.0 because some bootloaders are not compatible with the newer 1.2 metadata, so 1.0 is the way to go. And the devices we're gonna put on RAID is dev sda2 and dev sdb2. Created and started. But if you're gonna do it using Btrfs, it's just typing mkfs.btrfs.m RAID1, put metadata in RAID1, -n, and -d RAID1 to put data on RAID1, and the devices you're gonna format dev sda2 and dev sdb2. Press enter and it will create the RAID for you. Next one is the swap array, so mdadm -c dev md swap. Number of devices is 2, level is, I'm gonna put it on level 0, okay, but if you want to duplicate the swap, put it on 1. If you want a faster swap, put it on 0. Metadata doesn't need to be touched because it's going to be started later and directly by the kernel, and kernel can recognize newer metadata, so it's cool. Dev sda3, dev sdb3, and created and started. Now encrypt those root partitions, the 4th partition on each drive you have created. You can use different passwords, different passphrases, or same passphrases, doesn't matter. Just yeah, do it exactly as you wish. Encrypt setup, lux format, cipher, AES, XDS, plain 64, SHA-512, hashing SHA-512, and 256 bits is the default key. Bump it up to 512 if you wish, but you don't need to, it's secure enough. Dev SDA4. Uppercase letters, yes, and enter your passphrase for the encrypted container. And there we go. Now do the same thing for dev sdb4. Right, and then open each container. Crypt setup lux open dev sda4 as sda4 crypt, just as we discussed in the Ubuntu encryption earlier. You should follow the same pattern as Ubuntu does for opening its encrypted containers, because otherwise it will scream that it can't recognize it. And there we go, they're opened. Now you can create your Btrfs file system on top of them, or just it's file system creation time, right? So let's first make our boot file system. If you have already partitioned the array using Btrfs, you don't need to do that. If you have done the MD way, just type mkfs.extension2, and reserved blocks is 1%, dev md boot. There we go. Now the Btrfs mkfs.btrfs for our roots. RAID 1, dev SDA, dev mapper SDA4 crypt, dev mapper SDB4 crypt. They're created. Now mount them and create your subvolumes. So mount dev mapper SDA4 crypt on MNT. You don't need to specify the second one because Btrfs would automatically include that when it is mounting the partition. So, and then go to MNT and create your subvols. Btrfs subvolume create at Ubuntu. And I'm going to create another subvolume. If this was a real system that I would use at home, I would want to have a virtualization folder for all of my guests that I'm gonna virtualize on, because I will then apply some file attributes to it to make the virtualization faster. Btrfs subvolume create add virtboxes. Right? There we go. Now go back and unmount MNT and mount it again with the Ubuntu subvolume we just created. So mount-o subvol equals at Ubuntu, and some options like space caching. If you have a hard drive like I do, or hard disk, put auto defrag. It is not for SSDs. And what else? Yeah, compression. Compress LZO. And the device is dev mapper SDA4 crypt on MNT. Right, this option I was wrong in entering. Auto defrag. There we go. Now it's mounted. So cd into MNT. What's going on with my typing today? Okay, and create the rest of the subvolumes and some extra folders for mounting stuff, right? So Btrfs subvolume create USR and home and temp and var temp opt, etc. And yeah, I don't think we need any more than that. Make your boot folder to mount the boot array, and I'm going to create another for virtualization boxes. Okay, and then mount your boot array here. Dev md boot on boot. And you are now ready to install the base system. Okay, we're not gonna do that in the installer. It is not possible to achieve in the Ubuntu installer. We're gonna use a utility called debootstrap. It is originally intended to use for chroot installs. So you won't get any kernel or any bootloader or anything, but you can specify that it goes and gets those extra packages for you. So you need to type debootstrap. We're gonna have a 64-bit system and include these extra packages in the base system. A kernel, Linux image, generic, its headers, Linux headers, generic, some tools, Linux tools, generic, its sources, Linux source, a bootloader, grub PC, mdadm, Btrfs tools, network manager, crypt setup, and what else we need? Some editors maybe, vim, nano, and the manual database, of course, mandb. The next parameter should be your release name. So Ubuntu 16.04 has codename Xenial. Type that, and then the mount point on which you're going to install all of these two, which is mnt. After that, you're going to type a mirror to download all the Ubuntu stuff from, right? So in order to get your mirror, you can go to this website, repogen.simplylinux.ch, and select your country here and your release, and tick all of these. And then scroll down to the bottom and click on Generate List. And then you will be directed to a page like this, from which you highlight this, or copy this, write it down, and type the exact same thing in your command line. Okay, so http se.archive.ubuntu.com, Ubuntu, and /, then press enter for it to go and download all the packages that we specified. Oh, of course you have to install debootstrap first. I have to install debootstrap. Yeah, now, there we go. So it is now downloading all the necessary packages. Yeah, separate them with a comma, like that. Now it's getting there. Very good. And I want to give a shout out to this guy, Preferred Bliss, for his wonderful guide on Gentoo Linux on ZFS installation. And yeah, I have picked some of the parts of this installation from his wiki. So go and check his work out. I am gonna put a link of that in the description. And here is the base system installed successfully. So the next step for us is to go into the base system and mount some virtual file systems in there for ACH root environment and configure it just enough for it to boot, and then resume our configuration from there. So mount those virtual file systems. Mount --rbind dev sys sys and run mount to proc2 -t proc proc and chroot in bash -l. Okay, now configure your hostname. Echo ubu vb is my hostname, and direct it to etc hostname file. Then specify your time zone, ln-sf, user share zone info, and then where you are in the world. Europe, Stockholm is where I am, and to etc local time. Here we go. Now configure your locale, vim or nano etc locale.gen, and I am going to uncomment the US locales here, and there we go. Type locale-gen to generate these locales, and after that it is time to configure your crypt-tab file for the encrypted containers to be opened at boot time. So vim etc crypt-tab, and target name is the name of your encrypted container. The first one is SDA4 crypt, and source drive specified with UUID. Just you can go to a separate terminal and logging in as the user Ubuntu with no password, and type ls-l dev disk by UUID, and yeah, and it will show you the UUIDs of your disk. As you can see, SDA4 has a UUID. Type that in crypt-tab, but as I do not have a cursor right here to do that, I am just going to type the device device name itself, which is dev SDA4. If you're going to do that using UUID, type UUID in capital letters equals the UUID without any quotes. So key file is none, we don't have any. Options is Lux. If you have it on SSD, you can type comma discard to enable the trim support. Next one is SDB4, crypt, dev SDB4, key file is none, and like that is Lux. Next one is our swap partition, which is we're gonna create on top of our array. So swap, crypt swap, target name, source drive, dev md swap, key file is dev urandom, and swap. We can change the cipher too if you wish. Cipher equals AES XTS plain 64, and bits I think is 256. Yes, for 256 bit swap. Save and exit. And then configure your epistatic file. But before that, let's change the permission for crypt type so that only root user can view it. chmod go-rx etc crypt tab. Okay. Now epistatic etc fs tab. There it is. Delete this line and put something for the comment. Static mount options. Root partition. The first one is the device name that we are gonna mount as root partition. So dev mapper SDA4 crypt. Mount point is root. File system type is Btrfs, and options. We're going to specify two devices, as there are two devices for our root partition. So device dev mapper SDA4 crypt, device dev mapper SDB4 crypt, and then subvolume at Ubuntu, compress equals LZO space cache. If you have a HDD, type auto defrag, and if you have an SSD, type SSD here. But if your SSD is a low-end one, like those Kingston SSD Now stuff, type SSD underline spread. Okay, and then type the discard command 2 to enable trim. But I don't have an SSD, so this will do. And then 0, 0. We don't need to specify any checking here for Btrfs because it will automatically do that. Next one is the boot partition. Dev md boot mount point boot file system extension 2 defaults and 0, 0. If you created your boot array using Btrfs, just type the type 1 file system and then specify the device in the amount options and put this file system type on Btrfs and you are good to go. Next one is swap. I am not sure if crypt tab will activate swap on its own, so I'm going to enter it here. Dev mapper crypt swap. Mount point is none. File system is swap. Options is SW and 0, 0. Remember, I had a vert boxes too, so I'm gonna mount that to vert boxes subvol dev mapper SDA4 crypt vert boxes Btrfs device equals dev mapper SDA4 crypt device dev mapper SDB4 crypt, and subvol is at vert boxes. You don't need to specify any other options as they will be inherited. And and we are done here. FS tab is created. So save and exit, and create your software RAID configuration file for it to be assembled at boot time. So type mdadm-examine-scan and pipe everything or direct everything you found to etc mdadm.conf. Now update your init RAM-fs to include all the necessary modules needed at boot time and the cryptaf file. Update init RAM-fs-u and install your bootloader. Grub install --recheck dev sda. You can install it on sdb2 if you want. And create your configuration file. You can just type update grub on Ubuntu. On other systems, grub-mk config-o boot grub.cfg, and it is done. To check if our RAID array has been included in the boot file, just read it. If you scroll down a bit, there we go. As you can see, just the middle of the page right here is mdraid1x, so it has detected and you know, put everything that is needed to boot the array in the configuration file itself, so you don't need to do any manual intervention or change any configuration file in the grub. Just exit and add a user add -m-G, and I'm going to add Ubuntu's default groups for a user plus some extras: ADM, DIP, plugdev, CD-ROM, sudo, audio, video, games. Shell has been bash, and username is seeker me. Create your password. There we have it. Now add those extra repositories to your sources.list file, because there won't be any besides the main repo. So vm etc apt sources.list. As you can see, there's only one here and it's not even complete. So at the end of this, add restricted universe multiverse. Copy this line, paste it again, and after Xenial add dash updates. Paste it again and add security again and add backports, and then again and add proposed, but leave the proposed repository disabled as it contains some early stage packages that might not have been thoroughly tested. So yeah, you can add the Ubuntu partner repository if you want to install Steam and Skype from, and also Flash Player. So new line and deb http://archive.canonical.com/ubuntu Xenial and partner. Yes. So just save and exit and run apt update. And there we have it. Now everything is almost done as far as configuration goes, but we still need to make some more stuff when we boot the system, and so we're going to postpone the rest of the stuff when we have rebooted the system. So do that. Reboot. Just type exit and unmount everything that is under MMT. Yeah. Reboot. And there we have it. It asks us for our passphrase for our encrypted disk. This is the first one. That is the second one. There we go. Your system is booted and ready to go. Type your username and password, and you are now logged in. Now let's configure our locales just one more time to let the system know of them. So go root and type localctl. Well, first let's generate them. Local-gen. Okay, now localctl list locales to see what locales we have available. Choose the one that is for you and type localctl set locale lang in uppercase letters equals, and then the locale you chose, en_us.utf8. You can also list the key maps that are available, but it may say that there are none available right now. List key maps, yeah, but you probably know the code, so just type it. I know the code. Localctl set key map us. If you type localctl again, you see that everything is set up as it should right now. So the next step is to configure the host name using systemd's command. So hostname ctl set hostname ubuntu and make sure to enter the hostname in the hosts file, so that the next time you want to go root as sudo or issue sudo at all, it won't complain about not finding the hostname. Vim etc hosts, and yeah, ubu just right here after this localhost ubuntu. And there we go. Now enable your networking. Systemctl enable network manager and start it, please. And we should now have access network, so ping something. Oops. There we go. And your system is now pretty much ready. Now just if you want to make some additional configurations, you can do that. One thing you can do is to add the i386 architecture and make your system multi-arch. So when you want to install 32-bit packages like Steam, you can actually do that. It is now a purely 64-bit system. So type dpkg -- add architecture i386 and update your sources, your repositories. Okay, and you can upgrade your system too by typing apt full upgrade, and it will upgrade everything, and we have a whole lot of them. So then after you have upgraded your system, you can install a graphical environment too if you wish. You can install Ubuntu's default Unity desktop or Kubuntu, Xubuntu, Lubuntu, Ubuntu Mate, and Ubuntu GNOME. To do that, you just type apt install Ubuntu desktop. If you want Kubuntu, type Kubuntu desktop, or Xubuntu desktop, or Lubuntu desktop, Ubuntu-Mate-desktop, Ubuntu-GNOME-desktop, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Press that like button, comment on this video, and subscribe to my channel. More content of this type and of other types will soon be released on my channel. So see y'all later.